serving one another in service to the Lord is always honoring to him, and there is no reason why we couldn't do these things on the Sabbath day, which is exactly the point of Jesus' message in today's text. Sabbath is a day of rest, and we honor the Sabbath because it's our Sunday. You know, it's the day of rest for us. But there is no day that if there's an opportunity to do good, that we shouldn't do good in helping others or doing what's needed on any set day. And our first outline, it said, Jesus sees a need. Luke 14, 1 through 2. And it came to pass on one occasion when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. Just then, in front of him, there was a man who had dropsy. And dropsy was a condition of body, a condition that this man had was swollen because of a lot of fluid that he had on his body. So that's what dropsy was. So in our lesson today, we find Jesus again at the house of a leader of the Pharisees, but this time Jesus also heals on the Sabbath. This religious culture and tradition is considered work. Jesus' healing was considered work. Remember, the laws, the Pharisees and the laws didn't believe in doing any work on the Sabbath. But even healing on the Sabbath was considered work under their law, which also goes against the normative biblical tradition of the Pharisees. It says, have you ever missed an opportunity to minister on the Sabbath because of religious principles? I just stated earlier, we should never miss an opportunity to do good. We should never miss the opportunity to supply a need if there is a need, be it Friday, Sunday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even on the Sabbath. We should never miss an opportunity to help, to be of need to somebody. It says, verse 1 begins with, as soon as they arrived in the area, the disciples came to Jesus with a question. We find Jesus being entertained in the house of another Pharisee, but this time he is one of the chief priests. He is one of the chief Pharisees, leader or ruler of the Pharisees. In any case, he is someone who has great authority, similar to Nicodemus, and he was likely a member of the Sanhedrin Council, belonging to the elite group of the 72 men. In this prominent man's house, we find Jesus eating. Jesus is invited again to come in and dine, but with this Pharisee, it's a higher. He's a higher up, higher in authority. So in our lesson, Jesus was questioned. Jesus was questioned for not washing his hands. This was last week. This time, Jesus' focus is on healing a man who has dropsy or edema. Jesus is about to break bread, which is a usual custom on the Sabbath. This Pharisee was probably a man of great wealth, which suggests that others would also be in attendance. According to the tradition of Jesus' day, everything would have been cooked on the day before. Do we remember back in the day? I remember even as a child, you cooked Sunday dinner on Saturday evening, Saturday night. When you came home from church, all you had to do was eat. But you did not cook on Sunday. And this is funny. They was talking about doing Sabbath day resting and not doing no work. Even didn't do laundry on Sunday. You didn't do anything. We went home the other Sunday and Dwayne had some work clothes outside and they were wet. And I got a clothesline. And he hung the clothes up on the line. He went out and hung the clothes on the line. I said, boy, you know you don't hang out no clothes on Sunday. You need to take them clothes off the line. You don't hang out clothes. But this was a law, one of the laws that the Pharisees had come up with. They were always trying to do something to get Jesus tripped up. But this, thank God. Thank God for for Jesus. Thank God for the knowledge that he has given us. Thank God that we have learned better and we are still learning. So learn better, do better. But I was, I remembered that. And then I couldn't believe I was reading this lesson about that. So as we went on, according to tradition, Jesus' day, everything would have been cooked the day before. Therefore, it was not considered work. Some commentators have remarked that this probably is no small gathering, and in addition to eating, there was also singing and dancing. No work, no cooking on Saturday. So if you got your adult book on the second outline, says Jesus responds to the need coming from Luke 14:3 and 4. The third verse says, and Jesus asked the lawyer and Pharisees, is it lawful to cure people on the Sabbath or not? But they were silent. So Jesus took him and healed him and sent him away. The man was sick. Jesus, even sitting at the table again, healed the man. Said Luke remind his audience that all eyes are on Jesus. All eyes were on Jesus. When Jesus saw the man, and I'm sure they did too. But all eyes was on Jesus. And they were probably thinking in their mind, well, what is he going to do? That's right. This man is sick. I just want to know, what is he going to do? Is he going to break the law again? Yeah. In their mind, will he be breaking our law again? Right. Jesus, he can do what he want, how he want, when he want, and who he want to. So because he is Jesus. So they were wondering. And I read that and I thought, as believers, as Christians, men and women of God, guess what? All eyes. That's right. All eyes. That's right. Always. All right. Watching us. Yeah. Why? Because Satan is always looking for a reason to find against us. Well, I saw her here and I saw her there, and she was at church last Sunday and she said she saved and did all eyes. Right. So because we are believers, because we are children of God, because we are the example to the world, just know that all eyes are on us. They were on Jesus, and they also are on us too. But while they are watching, Jesus' attention is on a man who has dropsy. They watching Jesus, and Jesus is watching the man that was sick, that needed a healing. Dropsy is a form of excessive swelling of the body. His arms and his legs were severely swollen. His condition had been readily noticeable. Although we know of the man's physical condition, we do not know his name. That's right. Luke simply says a certain man, which means he was not famous as the Pharisees or as Jesus the rabbi. This man was probably not an invited guest. He must have just been someone present who got the attention of Jesus. See, this was a setup. That's right. Jesus set this up. That's right. Yes, to show the Pharisees who he is, what he is capable of doing, in spite of their law, in spite of what day that they say it was. Jesus just saw a man in need of a healing, and he responded to the need, just like he do with us. Whenever he sees that we are in need, he responds. Thank God. Thank God that Jesus does not miss the opportunity to respond to our every need. We can give him praise. We can give him praise. In spite of what day it is, whatever we don't never know when we're going to be in need and when we're going to have to call on him. If it's Sabbath day, Sunday, Saturday, Monday, guess what? When we call on him, he will come. He will answer. He is right there. We've seen him do it time and time again. So he responds. It was noticeable that the man was sick. Now Jesus is just as aware of the man's condition and what day it is. He knows it's the Sabbath, and he sees that the man is sick. As the Pharisees and his invited guests, notice it is not the wealthy ruler that addresses the man's condition. It is Jesus. When the Pharisees refused to be hospitable to the man, Jesus takes it to the next level. Won't he do it? Yes, although Jesus was aware of the man's need for healing, Jesus was also aware that all eyes was on the young Galilean rabbi. Jesus knew that all eyes was on him. Therefore, before Jesus healed the man, Luke 14:1 tells us that Jesus spoke with the lawyer and experts in the law on the Sabbath and the rule of the healing or work on the Sabbath. When God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, one of them was the rules regarding the Sabbath. You shall not keep Sabbath because you shall keep the Sabbath because it is holy for you. Everyone who's not holy or impure shall be put to death. This was the 10 Commandments was given to Moses, so this is in the Mosaic laws. Whoever does any work on it, their soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days shall be work shall be done, but the 7th day is Sabbath for a solemn rest, holy to the Lord. Healing was definitely something that was considered work on the Sabbath. It was a no-no. But the verse 4 tells us Jesus healed the man and let him go. With no therapy, no medicine to take for a couple of days, the Lord had done what they could not do. The Lord had done what they could not do. Our Lord is a healer. He showed them up. He showed them down. He showed out sitting right in front of them. Let them know who was in charge. So the Lord had done what they could not do. Neither did they have the desire to do so because it could have embarrassed them. Right. When Jesus got through, they couldn't say nothing. They were ashamed because they knew they could not do what they had just saw Jesus do. They could not do it. So it said they were silent. When Jesus asked them, is it lawful to cure on the Sabbath or not? They couldn't say a word. They could not say a word. And when he showed up and showed out, they still couldn't say a word. I find no fault. I said it earlier. Right. I find no fault in Jesus. Right. He's all right with me. Jesus responds to our need, our every need, not about the day or the time. We can call him in the morning, said the son, call him in the noonday, in the middle of the night. He's still God, and he's still going to show up for us. So at no time, he said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So at no time, he's always there. And then I'm in our adult book, and I'm on our third outline. It says, Jesus questions the leader, Luke 14:5-6. Then he said to them, if one of you has a child, this is after they've seen the man healed. He says, then he said to them, talk about the Pharisees and the rulers, if one of you has a child or an ox that has fallen into a well, will you not immediately put it out on the Sabbath? Or will you leave it there to die on the Sabbath? This on the Sabbath where their law is you don't do no work. So what you gonna do? Again. Again. Just like in verse 3 and 4. Again, they could not say a word. You cannot, when God speaks, we just got to be quiet. When God speaks, we can't say nothing. When God speaks, we just got to be quiet. So again, it says in verse 6 that they could not reply to this. Still couldn't say nothing. It says their degree of silence spoke to the issue of their heart. That's right. Because they were silent. That's right. They didn't know in their heart. That's right. But I was studying and thinking about this, talking about the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a heart condition. That's right. All right. To the believers, Sabbath is a heart condition. All right. It's a heart thing. That's right. A heart that does the right thing. That's right. A heart that lives holy. All right. All right. Holy every day. Yes. As a believer. All right. Not just on Sabbath, all a right. Day of rest. That's right. But every day, God has called us as believers to live holy. Every day, God has called us as believers to do good, to do the right thing at all times, no matter who or what the situation is. If we know it's right to do, God has called us to do the right thing. But on the Sabbath was a day of rest. And we do need rest.
That's right.
We need rest.
That's right.
We worked all week long and gone all week long.
That's right.
Sabbath day, we need to rest.
Oh, yeah.
Get to rest.
That's right.
But still know that if something comes up,
That's right.
we can still call on God. We can still go to God. It says, Sabbath was made for man. Mark 2:27 says, Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Sabbath was meant to be a blessing,
That's right.
a good day
That's right.
to the people of God,
All right.
and not to be a burden
That's right.
to those who observe it, not to be a burden to us.
That's right.
If Cousin Tut, I know Cousin Tut is sick, and it's the Sabbath.
That's right.
I know she need my help,
That's right.
but it's the Sabbath.
That's right.
I got to get my rest. I got to honor the law, so I can't go help her.
Right. Right.
So if I don't go help her, that's a burden on me.
That's right.
I'm gonna worry,
That's right.
and I'm gonna stress
That's right.
how she's doing.
That's right.
You know, does she need my help, but I can't help her?
Right.
So I'm not gonna be burdened.
That's right.
I'm gonna do what God has called me to do. I'm gonna be a help in the time of need. So don't let that be a burden. It's a time, it's meant to be a blessing, that we can be a blessing
That's right.
to us and a blessing to others.
All right.
So we should keep this in mind when we have the opportunity to do good
That's right.
or release a person's pain, regardless of the day or the time. After immediately healing the man with the dropsies, Jesus said to the religious leaders and scribes, if one of you has a child or an ox that has fallen into a well, will you not immediately pull them out on the Sabbath? This was not an easy answer for them, since they said you can't do no work on the Sabbath. Verse 6 tells us again they were silent regardless of the answer given. It should be put to them it would put them in an awkward position. A person's child is important because we are to take care of them and to protect them. If it is a person's ox, it is what they would use to provide food for their families.
That's right.
So the ox was what they used to plow the fields and
That's right.
do all of this to get the land ready to plant seeds so that they would be able to have food and stuff. So if I got an ox in there, I'm going to need that ox later on down the line. Am I going to leave it in the hole, or am I going to pull it out? And in many cases, they were used as a means to help men cultivate their crop. But if the Pharisees say yes, then they are outright admitting they are willing to do work on the Sabbath day. They couldn't answer, because if they had said yes, then, hey, all of my laws, I just deleted all of the laws that I've been trying to put forth to everybody. Jesus, in a sense, removed their power by his merciful act. Even though it was done on the Sabbath, it was a good deed done. As Christians, we're meant to follow the example he has set for us in today's lesson, to do good no matter what day or time or night it is.
That's right.
And in our closing, whenever God's word challenges us to do the right thing, we must we must ask ourselves if our actions are governed by our desire to be obedient to God's word. The Sabbath should not be left alone for God's children to give respect or homage to him. The Pharisees could have used Jesus' healing example as a means to help others' views about the Sabbath to be changed. Jesus did not allow his actions to be dictated by the religious leaders, and we must not either.
That's right.
We must not allow our actions to be dictated by laws and rules or regulations. When we know the right thing to do, just let us just do the right thing. It said we too must do our best to abide by God's word and always know that the person is more important than the rule of law.
That's right.
The person is more important than the rule of law.
All right.
So we have come into this house to worship the Lord. It is the only day to do this per week, or is our every day of worship and work in our life. So every day is a day of thanksgiving.
That's right.
Every day is an opportunity, if we have that opportunity, to help those that are in need. So don't miss the opportunity to do good.